Spiral, dial, sci-fi with a soundscape.
Pudding, hello.
Hello.
Yes, and it's wonderful to be on this video call with you. See, it's like to hear.
Absolute pleasure.
Yes, and we were literally just talking about your episode. And
Indeed.
yeah, so just a bit of background. Cee is an amazing composer, and I worked with them for a few years actually, and we made a very cool piece called CRYSTALQUEER together, which is
Indeed we do.
binary crystals. But anyway, and so it's a privilege to have you here. And yes, anyway, I should let you talk about yourself, so please do.
Sure. What would you like to know for this particular
I want to
interview?
know how you describe yourself as like a creative person.
Good question. I guess so. I am a composer. I am a musician at large. I cannot be stopped. No, I I make music. I have my background in like a lot of like classical like training and stuff. But like I also have a huge interest in electronic music and electronics kind of in general. So my practice is kind of a blend of like these two areas, me being very much into instruments, anything I can get my hands on, and also fun noises. Love a good fun noise.
Fun noises. I love this description. Yes, give some examples. What's a good example of a fun noise?
Ooh, a fun noise. Oh, there are so many. Oh, what was I? Thing I've been doing lately. So I was this is a good example. I've been writing some a piece for like just like piano and voice, but like trying to kind of see if I can use a granulator to kind of like scan through some like of the piano recording and kind of capture like the glitchiness inherent in that kind of like sound world, but kind of just translating that to kind of like playing as ordinary. So like so that's kind of like a thing I've been doing lately, that's kind of like a pared down kind of version of my practice. So that's been quite fun.
That's awesome. What are you granulating then? Just lots of different sounds, or?
So in this particular one, I was like, because I had this like very like fifth C, fourth C like piano kind of stuff that was very kind of calm, and I was like, right, if I just kind of scan through this with a granulator and kind of see if I can kind of chop at it at kind of various interesting intervals, so like little bits of melody and harmony and kind of progressions kind of creep out of it in like an interesting way. I guess like, I mean, you'll have this as well, that electronics can be a kind of like handy sort of like collaborator, in a sense of like you can sort of feed it information and then you use your own discernment to kind of then look back at what it chucks at you and go, oh, that was cool, that was fun. Like
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's so true. I feel like it's that idea we were talking about actually with CRYSTALQUEER of diffraction of sound.
yeah
Applying that, obviously, is, you know, sound is a wave and you can apply it at kind of the literal physical level, but at taking it up to a wider scale, you're kind of then just taking those samples and messing with them, and then combining them with new forms, really.
Absolutely. And like I think it's also then kind of fun to kind of have this sort of like this conversation, if you like, where you have my one of the cats is here. I don't know if she'll hello sweetie. There she is.
Hey, gorgeous.
Want to have a little seat, baby. Sorry, what was I saying? So like so then as well, like you have this sort of thing where you can have like a very kind of electronic kind of syntax, if you like, that you play like as a human person, and then also the sort of flip side of getting the electronics to do something that feels very human. This kind of interesting kind of like interface between kind of like my experience of playing as a human, and then sort of like what does it mean to kind of like real stick to the grid or be very mechanical about something, and then do very much the opposite.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's very interesting because a lot of your work, like with your arrangements and things, it's very kind of controlled in a way, orchestration. And then when you're in creative mode with your own material, then you can just be having take all those technical skills and then go completely then off the wall and take the two together, which is what I really
Yeah.
how your work.
No, thank you. Yeah, like I feel like electronics has always been this kind of wonderful force that can kind of just open stuff up and like just really kind of surprise you, like, and it is kind of often like a really interesting mirror, and then to kind of have some control over that but still kind of have surprises. It's like super refreshing. Like so this the portion of music I gave you is what I wrote when I was writing a track called Escape Turf Island.
Yeah.
So this was a track.
Everyone check this track out because it's a great track. You've been Kanga's album, am I right?
That is absolutely correct. Sideboard Soloist.
The album launch, and I heard him playing it. So I remember that. It's a great track, and I also remember when we were at Summer Studios and you were R&Ding it, and we were in the concert hall, like Stage 2 up in Newcastle, and Cee came in and they kind of played this demo of Escape to Turf Island that you were working on at the time. This is in 2022.
Yeah. Oh, that's I couldn't remember what I played there because I knew that I was like I'd come there with the fabulous Superlative GBSR duo, but they had to leave a few days before the end. So we would have done something all together, but instead I was kind of like, well, I'll show something that other stuff that I've been working on. So like this little clip was a funny one because like Escape Turf Island ended up being very kind of rock kind of influenced, and this, just sometimes when you're like, I had that kind of notion, and then I had this secondary material that was kind of more sort of like, if that was dystopia, this was the more utopian type material. It was more kind of like hip hop, almost like smooth, like this sort of harp sort of getting through it a little bit. I think like a little bit of Flying Lotus was kind of in my brain with it. And just because the track itself had to only be so long, it was the dystopian material that ended up with it. But I still had this stuff that I was like, oh, I like this, I just don't know what to do with it. So when you were like, put the call out, I was like, yes.
Yeah. I was very excited to get it because I just listened to it and I thought, wow, this is amazing. Like how so basically with these samples, then the idea was with series 4 of Spiral Dial to use the samples as material, but obviously you gave me your sample and I had no idea then. Well, I had permission to do whatever I wanted with it. You had no idea what I was going to do with it, but also I had no idea what I was going to get. And then was already written, so then it was a matter of I had these samples and it was a matter of then before the recording sessions knowing which one to put where. So before the recording sessions we made the kind of electronic setup that the samples go in, and it was slightly different for each episode. And I think when I heard this, then I just thought it was just amazing on its own, really. Actually we didn't change it that much, but we were obviously playing over it a little bit and narrating, but we did change it. So we were actually just listening to it, weren't we? Should we listen to a little bit of where this comes in the episode, because we're in episode 46, which is series 4 episode 10 in my mind. But where did we get to? I think we were just listening to
Jessica shrugged.
50 is where this comes in.
Lifting a large purple rock with ease and walking back down the beach. Sitting down in the shallow water, she lifted the rock atop her lap and carefully formed a bubble through her hand. The rock felt warm under her skin. First warmth, then a prickling sensation, as if shards of glass were trying to escape through her fingertips. before her very eyes. Dark veins began spreading up her arms, forming bubbles in her skin, bursting, discharging noxious pus into her lap. Rather than the bubbles spreading out onto the rock, she felt the purple substance expanding through her veins towards her heart. Horrified, she tried to push it back, to no avail. Her body was decaying. She could taste her tongue as it disintegrated into the back of her throat. First one tooth, then more fell from her mouth, embedding themselves into the white sand. Pushing the sand aside with her feet, she felt a hard lump beneath her, embedded in the sand. She tried to free it and saw the outline of a human jawbone. Lying next to it, a fractured femur. She saw it now. This was not coral. The whole island was made of fragments of human bones. Teeth on teeth, fingers on fingers, adults' bones and children's bones, human bones and animal bones, the skeletons of those who had gone before her. She could feel the death and decay spreading into her, taking her over, taking her over, taking her over, her very being. The shadow of the ship rose up above her, circling the island just outside the reef. Of course, they were watching her. Was that a flash of light? A reflection of binoculars? The captain, perhaps, sitting in their office laughing at the denouement of the twisted plan. As her thoughts descended into darkness, she could only hope against hope that Morven and Archie had got away, that they would not perish in vain.
It all gets a bit body horror, right?
Love it. That's really great. I always I always have this experience. Like, the recorder goes with so much. Like, I freaking love the recorder. Like, I really did. So that first portion, because like that was kind of that kind of first little bit is kind of working its way out of like the dystopian material before like the hard part starts. That kind of like kind of stuff. If that slowed down a little bit, that feels slower than I remember.
It's do you know what? There's a bunch of filters and LFOs on that.
Yeah.
It was just different layers of the track have different. So some bits there's a filter on, other bits and sometimes different frequency levels. Basically, I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's not slowed down per se, but it is altered in other ways. But it's mainly the you can probably then hear, and then I was kind of then dialing the filters in and out. I think there's a couple of other things on there as well. I can't quite remember, but I think it might be some sort of grain delay type thing. I think that some bits of it went into a granulator at some point, but that's more in the last episode, which hasn't come out yet. That's coming out this month. Yeah, and that's the one where everything kind of then all the samples then come together at the end in one thing. So it was all the samples people have given me in one piece, which is obviously a challenge. Everything happening at the same time, but I feel like it did end up working really well. So, but it's interesting that this one is from Escape to Turf Island, because this is on an island, this episode. So
very appropriate.
How that ended up happening, but I feel like there was it literally is like an Escape from Turf Island, except it's not literally a turf. It's all kind of gothic, like kind of body, decaying, and
yes.
If you know that island that's consisted of skulls in the Thames, I can't remember if there's an island that's full of skulls somewhere in the Thames. I can't remember if it's you that I was having this conversation with in the context of Turf Island.
No.
So, like, the idea of this, and that there's, there are lots of islands like this. Like, I went to Rottnest Island in Australia, which has a really awful colonial history in terms of Aboriginal elders were held there and died there, and there is, you know, mass graves there, and there's lots of islands like this where people have been confined, you know, and
Oh, sure.
and I guess this is what was in my mind, and I guess I think Turf Island would also look like that, to be quite honest.
I mean, it's funny, right? Because like, there's also like the flip side of like, oh, I don't know the name of it, but there's like, Cat Island, off of Japan, where like, rather than it being a nightmare, it's like there's just loads of cats that have just taken over the place. I kind of feel like I want to go from Turf Island to Cat Island.
Yeah,
like,
definitely. Yeah.
yeah.
I went to Pig Island in Thailand actually, and it's
Oh,
full of pigs. And again, I think a chap actually rescued some pigs because he didn't want them to die to be eaten, and put them on the island. And now the pigs have taken over the island. And they literally like
excellent.
go there and you like pay to feed them, and they can like just come and attack you. Like they will just bite you for the food. So you have to just be like really careful to get the food to them straight away.
Like, there it is.
It's not as romantic as it sounds though. I feel like Cat Island would be better because the pigs are not, how we say, they quite enjoy rolling around in mud and their own excrement. So that's basically the vibe of the beach on Pig.
Oh, blimey. Yeah, I kind of feel like, at least with Cat Island, it's kind of like, you know, maybe they'll come up to you for like a cuddle, but only if they really want to.
At least the whole thing's going to be clean and tidy, and you know that they're going to have buried their business somewhere, you know, rather than just leaving it, or just, you know, literally going in, like rolling around in the brown on the shore and then going into the sea and just washing it off, and this clouds of brown kind of come off them, which
Delightful.
was like a big island. So yeah, I don't know, but it's interesting that how did this get matched to, yeah, it's quite scary actually.
Oh, because like I really like how in this episode you've kind of, when the more kind of utopian material kind of comes in and you've got this harp, and then like you come in like with these glorious like flourishing improvisations, and like I like that as a contrast with this kind of like really over body horror. But like a lot of like Spiral Dial, like I feel like it's really interesting and fun for it to exist in this kind of ambiguous space where like the music might suggest a kind of like almost like transcendence, like beyond the body, that you could possibly read into if you wanted as well. So like I really enjoy that. I also, before I forget to say it, I really enjoy the extra like very like a higher frequency woody kind of like percussion. I keep making the drumming notion in the air, and I'm like, I need to say the words. But especially like at the start of the material, like just kind of that extra like lifting layer to it is real nice.
Yeah, well, Adam is fantastic, like the drummer on Spiral Dial, and you know, we improvise it all live. So even though I've put like the samples in and the electronics first, so the whole thing's improvised live in one take. So it's not a polished production, but it is exploratory, and
it's great.
Yeah, I think it's like with the percussion, because this is a water themed series, and we're in a watery environment. Then Adam had a lot of props to do his percussion sounds, and he had a big bowl of water. We had lots of cutlery, we had some brushes, we had a big bottle of gin actually, that you can kind of slosh around, and so
for music making purposes.
We had a lot of this kind of props that he was using to actually make those sounds, and I think it's probably knives that he's playing that with.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, I mean, it sounds really fantastic. Like, well, I mean, I really like the fact that like the way the music is made on Spiral Dial, like you say, being kind of like you know, you do your organization beforehand, but it is essentially like live improv. Like it does give it this very like intuitive, responsive, dynamic like thing, which is really it's deeply refreshing. Like I think I was saying to you, like I'm working my way through Spiral Dial. I have to take breaks because like it's very intense. Like I keep episode, is it 7, that Sacrifice?
Yeah,
like I still Yeah, I still remember like first listening to that like in the kitchen in my house and being like, I think I might need to take a break. Jesus Christ, like, damn. But like it's
Yeah.
it's a way of putting music to media that I do wish we would see more of, like just generally, because like it's a great thing to do as a musician, and I think the result is really compelling.
Oh, thanks so much for that. I mean, that means a lot, obviously, coming from you. And I think having this sample here was wonderful, because what I'd really like to do is to get everybody here and get you here in the studio and do a session like that, you know,
Sick. Yeah.
which, you know, really amazing. But, you know, finances and geography allowing, then it's the next best thing to have you here in a virtual form. And so it was great, because it kind of felt like that you were then in the studio with us, taking part in that. And also with the I think with David and Adam, obviously David's narrating and Adam's playing the percussion, and it's the first time David's read it, so he doesn't know what's going to happen when he's reading it.
It's really the first time he's read it.
It's the first time. Every time it's the first time. That's the whole idea, is that it's new to him every time, so he doesn't practice it, and I don't give it to him in advance. He reads it, and it's all happening at one time. So
I don't think I appreciated that. Because I always think that, like, I always think David's narration is really top notch. And in fact, in choral, actually, I was like, ooh, that voice is really like, ooh, I like that. Like, wow, nice job, David.
He does really, but I think it's that idea of discovery, in terms of, you know, I obviously do know what's going to happen, but I don't know what I'm going to play. And then the idea of people then discovering it and responding to it at the time. But then obviously when your kind of sample then come in, then that is adding another element to it, which is really wonderful. And I think also with this kind of piece, it was so epic kind of on its own, in terms of the movement from the synths and the kind of deep beauty of it, and then as you say, towards through to the harp and everything. And I was interested actually in how that meshes really with the idea of Turf Island, actually, because I put it with this horror island, because I felt like it was almost, for me, the opening was the very relaxed part, and then it was coming into actually with the harp part, it felt more unsettling in a way, which sounds like maybe it was the opposite of what you were thinking. So what were you thinking?
Yeah, pretty much the opposite. Sorry, that's fascinating. So, because like this was very much going to be because like importantly, escape Turf Island. This was going to be like we have landed somewhere better type thing. Hence, kind of like, yeah, I guess like the harp is often associated like image wise and oral wise with the kind of like like heaven kind of like thing. So this was very much the kind of like, oh, thank God, we've escaped. We're somewhere better. Yeah, that is really interesting though. Like I think because there is like a very sort of like very wibbly kind of like vocal sound behind the harp that is kind of in its own way like a little disconcerting, because it's kind of a little bit vocal but not, and a bit synthetic. And I do think that it's like it is kind of a, I mean, in a sense, I guess, like thematically for me, it's kind of why I didn't necessarily involve it in the track as it ended up, because I think like that kind of notion of escape can be like, it's less that you escape and it's more that the thing changes, hopefully
Yeah.
For the better.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think like this kind of notion of like okay, it's all fine now is kind of tinted with, I think, a bit of like like a definite fantasy, which in and of itself, like that's not necessarily a positive thing, because if it's a fantasy, then it's not reality. Sorry, a bit tautological that.
Yeah, no, I totally hear you. I mean, I think it's interesting also what makes a sound creepy, you know. I mean, what does make a sound creepy? Because for me, like you say, like hearing that kind of harp or hearing those sounds, like I always think if you have in a way some music that's quite I don't know, it's quite soothing in a different context. When you're pairing it with something that is disturbing, it can make it more disturbing because it's the kind of normality of it, isn't it?
Absolutely. And in fact, I think like a lot of like my favorite like horror media very much kind of like has that sort of thread running through it, that we have something that like should be normal and fine and comforting even, but it's just uncanny enough that it's like, no, this is wrong. Like I still haven't seen season 3, but I'm a big Twin Peaks fan.
Yeah.
Like I love, like, uncanny is something that I value like very, very deeply. So I think maybe even, I don't know, because like sometimes even these like terrifying things can have like positive association. Like I'm a big fan of like the original Silent Hill 2 specifically, and like I think there's an interview with like Flying Lotus and Thundercat. It is Thundercat, isn't it? Oh yeah, good. Where they're kind of like,
yeah.
Where like they sort of say, oh, I'd love to be in Silent Hill, like it seems so cool to be there. And like it's one of those funny things where it's like, I mean, no, you don't want to be in Silent Hill, but also I totally understand what you mean. That kind of like calm, sort of like awe-inspiring kind of stuff. That something can be both terrifying. Well, I guess that's kind of what awe originally means, right? It's that kind of like seeing the face of God, and like that in and of itself isn't just like fluffy bunnies and rainbows. It's like, oh dear God, yeah, like not inherently just positive. It is also terrifying, but that's not necessarily bad.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you know what I think? What's funny is as well with recorders, which obviously, and you're a great recorder player as well.
Oh,
which,
thank you.
And
that means a lot coming from you.
Recorders are a sound that people associate with school and children's playgrounds and nursery rhymes, like, you know, Bar Bar Black Sheep, which can also be creepy in and of themselves, you know, even when not playing. But one thing I will say is that with Spiral Dial, you know, the number one comment we get from people is, this is really creepy, like this you know, music's really creepy, and which is kind of the point of it. So, you know, success. But at the same time, I think maybe there's something about that in terms of if you're taking a recorder, which people think is quite like a pure sound and innocent sound, and if you're then doing unexpected things and you've got a twisted story, it makes it even extra creepy because the sound itself is actually not that, you know what I mean, that kind of violin, like that expected type of
no, I can totally see that. Like I feel it's so funny, right? Because like I've come to the recorder kind of like relatively recently, and like I freaking love the recorder. Like I think it might be one of my favorite instruments to play. Like it's so responsive, it's so, you can take it in so many different directions. You can be kind of like twee and classical like with it if you want to be. You can also be super percussive and very like, I mean, I love like your kind of like, you have kind of like a finger fluttering kind of thing that you do that gets all these kind of strange like bird like harmonic-y kind of things out of it that I always really enjoy. And I think that people aren't used to hearing the recorder played professionally, unfortunately. As you say, they tend to associate it with kids who've just started, you know, and you know, if you're a kid who's just started playing the recorder, you know, good stuff, well done, like that's all cool. But like I think also the idea of like applying electronics to that is something very foreign to a lot of people, because like to me, I kind of hear it and I'm like, it's more kind of like, you can hear like there's definitely a folk kind of like in like sound because of the sound of the recorder, but then kind of like electronically transposing it, I think it takes it to something really kind of interesting and fresh that, yeah, I can see how some people would have the reaction of, oh what that
yeah, it's true. I mean, I think essentially, although what we're both trying to achieve maybe with our work is, and I mean, I don't, tell me if I'm wrong, but is to also create another world and to go into another world. And certainly with you and your album The King, that's obviously the you know, what I was taking away from it, really.
Awesome.
So I think it's interesting in a way when you're choosing instrumentation. I'm interested how you do that, because I know with the King it was kind of then a very different process in terms of what orchestrations you actually used and what maybe you would have wanted to use, and how you approach that now. You know, whether you're doing it the same way, because as an arranger you're kind of doing amazing kind of, you know, you've got this big orchestra, all, you know, like with the Proms, which Cee just had an amazing piece on at the Proms, which was incredible, with the London Contemporary Orchestra, is that right?
Yes, so this was Anushka Shankar. She's done these 3 like EPs, mini albums, and I did the orchestral arranging for album number 1.
Yeah,
so that was a really rewarding process. It's very much like, I don't think I really had a full appreciation for like the sitar, and also like, so like Western music is very concerned with like no, like harmony, another harmony, like kind of, it quite like, not to say there's no horizontal kind of like, obviously there is, like we got tunes, but like it's very kind of like event, and like when I first listened to the album, like I really liked it, but I was kind of like, yeah, I got a handle on this, and then trying to write down what Anushka had actually been playing in like Western notation, I was like, oh damn, it's like, I think in a lot of like Indian classical music in general, there's a much greater emphasis on actually how you travel from this note to that note, or at least kind of that would be my framing of it as somebody who is kind of, you know, trained to think about, here's a note, here's a note, here's a note.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like you have this note, but then the kind of the way it bends into the next note, like that was like really eye-opening. And like with the arrangement as a whole, then it was kind of a case of like, when is it appropriate to kind of like have the ensemble kind of like join in with that kind of like central kind of melody, how to kind of like best then also like support it, all this kind of thing. Was like, yeah, honestly a very challenging but very rewarding bit of arranging that was.
I mean,
That
it sounds
very
incredible.
cool.
You know, it sounds incredible, and I think it's interesting, that whole thing, like you're saying, in different traditions. There's actually a score only is notating actually really, I don't know, maybe 20% of the performance, in my opinion. I sometimes 50-50, but I actually think it's less than that when you're talking about a different tradition, which actually, as you say, there isn't actually an appropriate way of notating a lot of this stuff. That's
right,
really
right.
key. So, and we can't write it then, and you have to then make up a way to write it. So then it's, you know, actually as a composer then arranging it for an orchestra who need to have a score to tell them what to do.
Right.
Yeah.
That kind of process of like, how do we kind of like translate this in a way that a Western player like might understand, and also like, you know, obviously being kind of like sensitive to the fact that like this is new for the Western players, so like, you know, probably don't sort of try and give them sort of too much out of their comfort zone in a way of like being respectful about it, right? Like yeah, no, I think what you say about like scores is a really interesting one, because like I still think about the way in which like, I think if you're a performer primarily or a composer primarily, doing the kind of like quote unquote opposite role, I mean that's a bit of a problem I think we have in classicism as a whole, that we tend to see like those two roles as quite separate, where like they're not really, like, or at least they don't have to be, and perhaps shouldn't be. Is my humble opinion. But like I still remember like this sort of sense of, you try and put as much down on the page initially when you start composing, and kind of be like, there we go, that will all translate over to the performer, and then kind of appreciating actually how much like, yeah, kind of cultural musical norms and conversations and time with people actually is much more efficient than like trying to like get every single detail down. And in fact, my philosophy these days with it is trying actually to make the score as easy to read as possible, and then trusting that in the rehearsal process, if you need to give people a vibe, you can say with your mouth, you can be like, this type of thing, please.
But it's the vibe. The vibe is the key, right? That is the key.
Yeah.
And I feel like for me as a performer who works with music and also without music, and in my own practice, I work without music 90% of the time. You know, when you're performing with music, it can bypass straight from eyes to fingers without involving the brain or the heart. And I feel like actually,
Yes.
to perform without the music, then you need to be inside the music. You need to be inside the vibe. You need to engage with it. When I think in that orchestral tradition, it's completely possible for people to just play mechanically. And it's a challenge then for a composer to get the players to engage with the music is the number one problem.
Absolutely. Like, I feel very fortunate in that, like, because like a lot of my work has been with the London Contemporary Orchestra, and I think that those players have a really good understanding, which I'm very grateful for, that like the you know, they need to play the dots, but that's not where like the process stops. Like they're very aware of that. But I think it's a very common thing, I think, in that style of playing, where I think, well, it's also this notion of like the composer often has this kind of like deity status, like you know, Beethoven is God, and it's kind of like, you didn't play the exactly what's on the page thing, and it's a little bit like, I still remember, like, so I'm not religious at all. I'm an atheist, in fact, but I'm quite interested in religion as a phenomenon, as a cultural force, and into spirituality kind of generally as like a thing that humans require. And I ended up listening to a podcast, is it like the New Evangelicals, I think, and so they're kind of more of like a left-leaning like evangelical thing, kind of one of these where it's like they used to be super right-wing and had a bit of an epiphany and went, oh shit. And so they kind of look at very right-wing like evangelicals and stuff like that. And the comment that really stuck with me was like, when did we start worshipping the Bible? In this kind of sense of like so many people being like, oh no, but like you like following like the Bible, like intensely specifically, like being like, that's the, and kind of being like, the Bible isn't a deity, like the Bible is not God. When did we privilege the text over, which like as to like how much I do or don't agree with that statement, like is kind of less interesting to me. But I thought that comment, I mean, in terms of like just generally kind of how religion tends to operate in this day and age was interesting, but I think that's really relevant as well to score. It's like, when did the score become the composer?
Yeah,
like
absolutely. And I think there's also now as well that idea of, if a performer is doing anything extra to the score, then they are therefore composing. And I also don't agree with that, because I feel like that's minimizing the job of a performer in a way. And then where do the two kind of converge? And like you say, if we're treating the composer like God, then if the performer is adding something to that, is that blasphemy?
blasphemous.
Me, are we, we're altering the word of God? If you're changing Beethoven, piano sonata, then probably it would be considered blasphemous, right? I don't know, maybe it would. If you're changing something, people won't care. Won't know.
Like,
and
well, right. And like, I think that like, I need to do more reading on it, but it's like, this feels very much kind of in line with conversations about like, is it like object-oriented ontology? Like, I won't pretend that I'm an expert. I need to do more reading about it. But like, I really am a believer that, once a thing exists, and that includes a score, it's kind of slightly out of your hands, but like that's a positive thing to my mind. Like, if I write a score and give it to somebody, it's very much with the understanding from me personally, I want a performer to inject their mark on it, their humanity, because like all of like recorded music I love is often because the performer is so who they are, and it's so like expressive and specific. Like it's very much like that. We don't have that without performers. and I
true.
can't impose that on you.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think just going back to my kind of original question, which I really wanted to ask as well, in terms of when you're arranging, you know, you get all resources, you know, you say, oh well, we have the Royal Albert Hall, we have like a full orchestra, we get whatever instrumentation you want. And then when, you know, for most composers, then when you're writing your own stuff that you really want to write in terms of your original material, which isn't to say that you don't want to do the arrangement, obviously you want to do it, it's incredible, but if you're making your own project, then you're dealing with the opposite situation in terms of, I don't necessarily know what resources I've got, or, you know, I've got to get a commission, or I've got to get, you know, I've got to get stuff to make that happen. So you're actually much more constrained, and I'm sure probably the same for a lot of people that we consider like to be the great composers today. We're definitely quite constrained in terms of, you know, say, well, I'm just going to write for a piano, right? In the case of say sonatas, or, you know, you're very limited. You can't just go, I'm going to write exactly what I want. So how do you approach that dichotomy?
That's a good question, because like I kind of feel like I've really enjoyed arranging over the years. Like I feel like you say, it's unless you very directly seek it out, and there are paths to doing that, but I mean they're not orchestras aren't just walking down the street. I mean orchestras are also, they're organizations, they're companies. It's, you know, it's you yeah, there's so much to consider, like your place within their kind of larger kind of body of like work, and that like what they're trying to do generally. I mean, my goodness, like, so arranging has often been like a way of like a kind of like, yeah, getting to practice like just orchestra things in general, because like you don't generally, especially after college, just get random opportunities to do orchestral stuff, because it's very expensive. It's expensive and a pain to organize and all the rest of it. And B, what's been really nice is that it's kind of like, it feels kind of like, I say a one-sided collaboration, that sounds like a bit of a a little bit of an oxymoron, but it's really nice to kind of like, I do feel like I've often been given things where it's a bit like, you know, you have a thing that's sort of small scale instruments, like maybe a little band, like with the Shankar stuff recently, or 8-bit even with previous game orchestrations. And when you're translating, especially from small to large forces, you have to have your own creative like response to that original thing, and then kind of choosing kind of how to kind of like put that into the larger thing. You do kind of like put your own kind of fingerprint on it, which has been a very nice revelation, I think. And yeah, when it's funny, right? Because like there's, with arranging, because you have a very definite idea of your forces and you have a very definite idea of the piece itself, you aren't as kind of choked by choice, if you like, in the same way when you have like an original composition. Because I have kind of been thinking about like, can I seek out more opportunities to do original orchestral music? And like that's still kind of on my mind, because that would be cool to do. But then all of a sudden then it becomes a humongous undertaking because of the sheer number of possibilities. I mean, in a way, it's kind of not dissimilar from electronics in that sense, because with electronics, as you know, you could do anything. You could do anything you really want. And like I think I've been through the curve that a lot of people have been through, when like I think the King is quite like maximalist in its own way, and I really like that. And then when the world kind of comes at you and says, oh, can you play this live? Can you do this gig? And you think, oh, bloody hell, how am I how? And then it's kind of like, I've kind of come now to a place where I'm starting from the idea of practicality, and trying to see how much of the maximalism I can kind of bring without sort of breaking my own brain.
Yeah, I hear you. I sympathize a lot with that, and in the same situation, especially also with the amount of gear that you've got to carry. It's either it's gear or it's people, and either way, it's not very practical. I think we're great. You know, we're lovely to be living in this age where we have access to these incredible electronic resources, where you can do a lot with not very much. And yeah, I think Spiral Dial's a good example of that. Of just get 3 people in a room and a Ableton and see what happens. And yeah, so it's freeing to just kind of minimize it in a way and just have something that's very simple and just go, okay, what can we do with this?
Totally.
You can take any combination of anything and you could go on making stuff forever actually without changing the setup at all. So then if you you don't want to fall into the trap of messing around with the setup and what you're just set the constraints early on and then be like, this is what we're doing, and then
Totally.
that rather than
absolutely. Because like I think it's also really nice to then kind of like again find yourself as a player within this kind of big old structure that like you've made electronically. So you've made this big structure so that you have these freedoms, but then to kind of go back to kind of like, okay, well, what am I doing within it and how am I interacting with people? Like it's always this kind of interesting balance.
Yeah, for sure. Do you know what, we're nearly out of time and I'm going to ask you some quick fire questions if that's okay.
Yes. Okay.
So favorite album at the moment?
Ooh. Oh, I'm gonna fail at being quick. Going to my Bandcamp.
Like OMG questions.
Yes. One that I have been really enjoying over the last year, in fact, has been A Touch of Grace by May Leitz. She does a number of things. She's a writer, she's a YouTuber, and a really incredible musician. Rock, catchy as hell, great stuff.
That sounds great. I need to check that out because I don't know.
I'll send it you.
They send it to me, yeah, please. Favorite instrument to play at the moment? We know it can
change. Favorite instrument at the moment. You know what? I have actually no. I've been enjoying the bass recorder. It has to be said. It's real nice. Like I've just got, it's just a plastic Yamaha, but it's real good.
Yeah, bass recorder. And favorite thing to do when you're not doing music?
I have been I have been 2 things. I've been doing a bunch of lino cut and making like little stamps, which has been lots of fun. And I have also been painting tins with enamel paint and doing like marbling and sort of drip type stuff. It's these little paints that you get in the craft stores to do nerdy things with.
That's so good.
So I've been learning about that.
Yeah, I have to come and see this. This sounds so
I'll
good.
send you a picture. I've done a good job.
What's the weirdest thought that came into your head this week that's like suitable for a family recording?
The weirdest thought that came into my head this week. Okay, I'll tell you one, and then you can edit it out if it's not suitable. It is from a few weeks ago, but it came back for silly reasons. For whatever reasons, I'm a really sweaty individual. I don't like it. I think it's because of my FFRIs. But for some reason in my mind, then I was like, I'm really sweaty. I'm the opposite of Prince Andrew. I'm extremely sweaty, and I am a reasonable, not criminal person.
I love that. The opposite of Prince Andrew could only be a good thing. I think it can only be a good thing. And what's up next for you?
So I have a commission coming up with Manchester Collective, which I'm really looking forward to. Starting to kind of like think about it and have conversations. It will be 15 minutes or no more than 15 minutes for cello, electronics, and the dance duo Thick and Tight. Which is wonderful duo name. So yeah, something for dance as well. So that should be, I mean, I'm not doing the dance, but they're doing it. But the whole collaboration I'm expecting to be very, very interesting. And I think we're going to make something really cool.
That sounds amazing. Okay, I really want to hear this now and see what you come up with them. Well, thanks so much for speaking with me and for joining us for Spiral Dial. It's appreciated, and I think that it wouldn't have been the same without you. And yeah, I'm looking forward also to see what you make of the last episode of this series, which is coming out on, I think, the 29th of September. It's a Friday, the last
Fabulous.
Friday. And then we're going to be on, we're recording series 5 at the moment. So it's probably going to be the last one for the time being, at least. So,
oh, damn. Okay.
so that's starting on the end of September, and then the first one's coming out end of October.
Very nice.
Tied at all. But yes, thank you. And yeah, I'm gonna theoretically end this call, but actually I'm not gonna. I'm just gonna stop recording. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.